Okay, so we are back out at a cemetery in Arcadia where we were at a few weeks ago, and after we left, we found the story of this local legend, which we think should be more of like a national legend, Acrefoot Johnson. So we came back out here to see if we can talk to him and maybe educate everybody out there in YouTube world about some of the history of this guy. He did some pretty wild stuff in his lifetime. So the Northwoods had Paul Bunyan, and West Texas had Pecos Bill. But Frontier Florida had its own larger than life character whose exploits were just as wild and woolly. The only difference was that unlike those mythical folk heroes, Acrefoot Johnson was a real person. James Mitchell Johnson was born on February 28, 1850. Big even as a child, his growth continued into adulthood. At 6 foot 7 inches tall and over 250 pounds, he was an impressive man. His size 14 shoes earned him the nickname Acrefoot because one observer said that boy can cover an acre in a single step. Local lore says he could chop more wood in a day than a crew of 5 men could in a week. Nobody wanted to work with him because he could chop palmettos faster than any man could stack them. At the end of the day, while his co-workers could barely drag themselves off to dinner and bed, Johnson was getting his second wind and ready to play his fiddle and dance all night long. Raising a family on the earnings of a small pioneer farm was challenging. So when he learned of an overland mail route was being established between Fort Meade and Fort Ogden, a distance of 75 miles, he applied for the position of mail carrier. The job paid $26 a month, a good wage in those days, and there were several applicants. According to legend, a man named Donaldson promised to make the round trip between Fort Meade and Fort Ogden once a week, regardless of hurricanes, rattlesnakes, Indians, or robbers. That was all the postmaster needed to hear, and he was about to award the contract to Donaldson when James Johnson interrupted and said if Donaldson could make the trip once a week, he, Acrefoot Johnson, could do it twice a week, maybe even 3 times. It was decided the best way to choose was to have the 2 men carry a small parcel over the route. Whoever completed the trip first would get the job. Acrefoot delivered the small sack to Fort Ogden by the end of the day, then played his fiddle and served as caller at an all-night-long square dance before setting off for the return trip to Fort Meade the next day. Partway into his return trip, he met up with Donaldson, who was finally nearing Fort Ogden. Acrefoot was awarded the contract and for the next 10 years made 2 and sometimes 3 trips a week along the primitive mail route, always arriving on time. Legend says that as his family grew, Acrefoot needed more money to support them, so he outfitted a wooden chair with shoulder straps to create a backpack and began carrying passengers along his mail route until the postmaster decided it was a conflict of interest and ordered him to stop. James Mitchell Acrefoot Johnson died in 1922 and is buried here in Cambridge Cemetery in Nocatee. His tombstone is inscribed "Cross Country Walking Mailman," affectionately known as Acrefoot Johnson. His creed, "The mail must go through."
Now Acrefoot Johnson toted U.S. mail in the state of Florida over a mighty rough trail. He strode at pace no horse could beat, and he won his fame on account of his feet. Stood a little taller than a tie-tie tree, had legs like a pine in the scrub country, walked 65 miles in the course of a day, 3 times a week for to earn his pay. Oh, he rode a little ways in a buggy one time, but then he took the fidgets and he grabbed the line, hollered, "Oh now, mister," he said with a frown, "I'm mighty much obliged, but you're slowing me down." Yes, he made him a chair out of ash and hide to wear on his back for people to ride, and him that did with a weak little laugh said, "I'll tell you boys, that's a ride and a half." Uncle Sam stepped in and said, "You've had your fun, but you can't tote people on this mail run." So Acrefoot quit, went home, took a nap, with a 7-foot gator line crossed his lap.